Fortunately, I did not like the book as much. Hey guys, it's Nikki here. I'm here today to do my kind of Book of the Month book club review for March. As normal, I'm doing my typical setup, kind of a spoiler-free front half and a spoilerish back half. And the book this month, if you saw my announcement, was Dr. Knox by Peter Spiegelman. I really liked the cover on this. Fortunately, I did not like the book as much. It is a mystery thriller. There are some trigger warnings I would give if you were interested in this book. It does deal with rape, it does deal with poverty and drug abuse and mental health issues and violence and gangs. There's a lot going on because it takes place in Skid Row. In this book, you follow Adam Knox. He is a doctor on Skid Row, and he runs kind of like a community clinic where he helps people who are homeless with mental health and drug addiction issues and just general poverty. And the story starts there, but very quickly moves to something different. And when this mother and son come in, the son is having an acute anaphylactic reaction to nuts, and as Dr. Knox treats him, and once he is healed, the mom kind of just leaves him, which is mentioned in the back of the book that the mother just leaves the child at the clinic. So the rest of the story is him trying to find the mom to reunite the mom and the son. And that leads me to my likes and dislikes. I'll go with my likes first, as I normally do. My first like is the pacing. It was a good, quick book. It was a fast read. It didn't feel rushed. It was just quick, paced very quickly. My second like is that there was a lot of footwork done in terms of the investigation that this man undertakes trying to reunite the mother and son. He does lots of interviews. He does lots of fact searching online, just general investigation. That was pretty well handled. My third like is that the writing style was pretty accessible, and that lent into the easy to read, along with the pacing that made it so easy to read. The writing wasn't terribly complex, and any kind of medical terms he used, he would describe it generally so you knew what was going on with the patient that he was dealing with. I really appreciated that. I personally work in the healthcare field, so I did understand a lot of the terminology, but I totally understand that someone who wouldn't get a lot of those terms, so I'm glad they were explained. And now to the negatives. I really didn't care for the main character at all. I didn't like the decisions he made. I didn't like I didn't like any of the decisions he made. And although he was like good guy doctor, he's kind of bland and didn't have that much personality. My second dislike is for the mother character that you're introduced to. Although she's interesting, I just didn't particularly care for her, and I didn't care for the mother character. She was a bit strange, she's a bit crazy. I didn't connect with her, or why it was so important to keep her with her son because of her actions specifically. And then my third negative is I just didn't care for the ending, just the way the book came together and played out. I just wasn't crazy about it. The ending, to me at least, was very unsatisfying. And that's all I have for my likes and dislikes. I'll move quickly on to my characters here. I'm going to talk about Adam Knox a bit. As I mentioned in my dislikes, I did not like him. I thought he was kind of a sucky main character. I didn't like his motivations. I didn't understand his motivations, to be honest. And he just made a bunch of dumb decisions that I couldn't get on board with. I much preferred his friend Sutter, however, and if the book had been written from his perspective, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. I wasn't crazy about the mother and son, and the side characters were like interesting and quirky, but nothing to write home about. In my opinion, this book didn't have super strong character work. And I'll now move kind of into my wrap up. This is the last part of the spoiler-free section. If you're interested in my book club questions and my spoiler chat, I usually do that after the wrap up portion here. So I will give you a quick summary, a rating, and then I'll move on. This book, which I got from my Blind Date with a Book subscription, as I do kind of all of my Book of the Month book club books. They don't sponsor me. And this month, this was the book get sent to me, and honestly, this is the only book I have straight up not particularly enjoyed. Thankfully, despite not enjoying it, the book read quickly and easily, like I mentioned, just with the writing style and the pacing. It really lent itself well to a quick and easy read. And there were individual parts of the book that I enjoyed, but other parts that I didn't, and just the way they came together fell together, and the way they came together was just not something that I enjoyed. And that really kind of leads me to give the book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was a really kind of meh, middle of the road book. I think some people will absolutely love this book, but it was not for me. So here's where I'm going to kind of say, if you like morally gray characters, who like morally gray kind of detective style characters, who really love, like, kind of get ramped up into the heroic role, and the story kind of gets into like gang involvement and like evil mega corporation conspiracies, I think you'll like this book. And although I like those things individually, I don't like them all together. And so overall, I probably wouldn't recommend this book unless you specifically like the kind of plot they dealt with here. And with that, I'll just go forward into my spoiler section. So this is your last warning. Spoilers from here on out. Click off if you do not want to hear them. Hopefully this will be quick. This is my kind of book club question section. I do my usual kind of 6 questions, and then I move into my spoiler chat. So my first book club question is, what was your initial reaction to the story? And honestly, I was not super excited when I picked up this book, just because the way the first chapter really read, I wasn't sure if it was something that I would enjoy, and I was right. Question number 2, what is your favorite chapter or scene? And honestly, I do not have one, because most of the big scenes involved dumb decisions by Adam Knox, and they just made me incredibly frustrated. Question 3, what kind of changes did your characters undergo through the book? These characters didn't really undergo major changes throughout the story, and that actually lent to Knox alienating a whole bunch of people that until then I assumed he cared about. But he threw a lot away just to stick to that one decision he made at the beginning of the book and not deviate from it in any capacity. Yeah, cool. My 4th question is, what did you think of the ending? I actually didn't care for the ending in this one. I found it particularly unsatisfying. 5, would you read another book from this author? I'd have to say probably not. I didn't particularly enjoy this novel that much. That being said, if he rewrote this novel from Sutter's point of view, I would probably pick it up. And then that leads me to the last question. Question 6. Does this book remind you of any other book? I have to say overall, probably not, because I don't typically pick up books where the kind of main detective character acts this selfishly and alienates this many people. I tend to go with motivations that are more for the greater good, or they accept a lot more responsibility in the fact that their decisions are alienating people. And honestly, I just don't read a lot of detective novels, so that could be it too. And with that, I'll move into my spoiler chat. The first thing is, I didn't like Adam Knox. And I know I've talked about this already, but like at best, his decisions were dumb and like morally questionable. And honestly, he just alienated everybody that loved him, everybody he worked for, everybody that he had in his everyday life. And it's like, if you weren't happy with the people you were associating with, there are easier ways to not interact with them anymore. Much easier ways. You don't have to not call child services, which he should have done very first thing, because that's what any normal person would do, but not him. And then my second thing I kind of want to talk about, I already sort of mentioned a little bit in my book club questions, is I would have loved to have read this book from Sutter's point of view, because I kept trying to reframe it that Sutter was actually supposed to be the main character of this book, and Knox was supposed to be kind of like the slightly bumbling sidekick who didn't really understand the underworld. because that would have made it a lot more interesting, where Sutter drags the main character in, or Sutter's the main character, but his sidekick friend Knox is getting him dragged into something, and he's out there just to protect his buddy because Knox is not known for making a lot of smart decisions, and Sutter's there to help his buddy out and do things for the greater good. And I kept trying to reframe it like, oh yeah, that's exactly what's happened. But honestly, this book just needed to be from Sutter's point of view. He was way more capable, seemingly way more knowledgeable, and he just came off as a lot more likable, a lot more substantial, and with a lot better decision-making skills than what the main character actually had. And I think the book, from his point of view, would have been a lot more enjoyable. But that's just my personal opinion, and I'm gonna stop here because I could rant forever about how much I think a point of view shift would have benefited this book. So overall, other than these two things, both of them kind of negative, like, the book really didn't leave that lasting of an impact on me. Like, I had to go back and skim through parts of the book to get some of my likes and dislikes, and some of my other things for the book club questions, because honestly, I didn't finish this that long ago, and I didn't remember that much of it. And I didn't have a favorite scene because none of them were that impactful. This book just didn't stick with me. It didn't jive with me. We didn't vibe, whatever you want to call it. It just wasn't my favorite. It wasn't the worst book I've ever read, by far. It was not the worst book I've ever read. It just wasn't a good one, and I'm never going to reread it. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.